I never really wanted to talk about politics because it's always seemed like a toxic mess to me. Left versus right, red versus blue. Just a bunch of people yelling at each other online while nothing truly changes. But lately, I don't know about you, but it feels like politics has invaded every part of our lives. You literally can't scroll through social media or watch the news nowadays without feeling like the world's on fire. And suddenly, all this stuff that we used to ignore, it kind of starts to feel personal. Because it is personal. And let me explain. Have you ever noticed that the people making the biggest decisions about our future won't even be around to live in it? I think that's absolutely insane, and you probably do too. What's the average age of Congress right now? Probably around 60. The people running for president are becoming older and older over the years, pushing 80. And there's nothing inherently wrong with old people. But at the same time, these are the same people who didn't grow up with internet, can't open a PDF, who have trouble with email. And yet they're the ones deciding the policies that will shape our jobs, our housing, our economy, and the rest of our lives. While they sail off into the sunset, and their kids breeze through life easily with the money and power handed down to them. But what about the rest of us? Meanwhile, Gen Z is sitting here wondering how in the world we're supposed to start a family when rent takes up half the paycheck, a Big Mac costs $13, healthcare is a luxury, and we're drowning in debt before a chance we even get to begin. For example, I was talking to one of my friends recently. He's planning to go to med school, become a doctor eventually, and he was tweaking out about the big beautiful bill because apparently it takes away the ability to get a government loan or something. I'm not sure about the specifics, but the point is that a lot of these things nowadays, since it seems like the government is genuinely getting more aggressive in implementing policies, a lot of these things are going to directly impact our lives. I've heard of other people potentially losing healthcare as a result of the budget cuts, at the same time that they're increasing the military spending year after year. So this isn't just some generational complaint, it's really a design flaw, because while the old guard hoards power for themselves, it's us, the younger generations, who inherit the consequences of their decisions. What I've personally noticed, and maybe you have too, is that Gen Z is becoming entirely disillusioned with the whole system. A lot of us just want to see it all burn, feeling like we don't have much to live for. It's not just a left versus right thing anymore. A lot of us don't feel represented at all by the people who are supposed to represent us. We scroll past all these headlines about new bills and budget proposals, filibusters and reconciliation or whatever, but it's hard to care at all when it all feels rigged. The same problems keep getting worse no matter who's in charge. Wages are stagnant, endless wars in the Middle East, housing costs and inflation rising, debt and deficit going insane, our infrastructure crumbling while our healthcare system screwing people over. And every election honestly just feels like choosing which flavor of disappointment you want to swallow this time. It's literally like that South Park episode where it's douche versus turd every single time. But the thing is that ordinary people actually have more in common than you might think. We act like the biggest divide is between Democrat and Republican, left and right, but the truth is that it's all a distraction, because the real divide, it's between the people who benefit from this current political system and the rest of us who are just trying to survive in it. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. Maybe I'm going a little bit hard. I hope I can still make some money off this video and not be too controversial. But one of the biggest truths that we need to wake up to is that our country is totally corrupted. And by the way, I'm assuming that you're from America if you're watching this. If you're not, then I still hope you can learn something interesting about what's going on in our country. But simply put, we have lost our sovereignty. Our government does not represent the people anymore. Because right now, there are two external forces controlling the government. Two forces that make every politician a puppet, no matter what they say on stage, no matter what side they choose. And those two things are globalist corporations and foreign governments. In case you don't know, corporate lobbying is literally just legalized bribery in the name of freedom and capitalism or whatever. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's not a theory, it's just how the system works. Big pharma, insurance companies, fossil fuel giants, they spend billions of dollars each year to make sure laws get passed that protect their own profits, even if it hurts you. because these corporations, they don't care about America. They don't care about you as a person. They don't care about this country either because these corporations are multinational. So they would happily support something that goes against the interests of America itself. They're not America first. They're profit first. Take healthcare, for example. Every other developed nation in the Western world has some form of a universal healthcare system, but we don't. America doesn't. The reason is not the bullshit that they feed you about, oh, we can't pay for it. It's because health insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies pay politicians to keep it that way. They donate millions and millions of dollars into the campaigns of politicians on both sides. They wine and dine all the senators, congressmen, everyone in power. And when these politicians get into power, they support legislation that doesn't regulate these rogue companies in the name of capitalism and laissez-faire free markets and all that. In return, we get a system where literally an ambulance ride can leave you bankrupt. Again, that doesn't help you as a person, that doesn't help America as a country. The US overall pays more for prescription drugs than any other country in the world. A very basic example is insulin. It's a life-saving drug, I think, for people who have diabetes, and that can cost hundreds of dollars in the US, while it's around $30 in Canada. Again, why is that allowed? Because the pharmaceutical industry spends hundreds of millions of dollars every campaign cycle lobbying politicians. Both pharmaceutical companies like Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson, as well as health insurance companies like United Health. They all have direct lines to our politicians, controlling them, telling what to do. Because if you don't, we're not going to fund your next campaign. In fact, we're going to fund your challenger to overtake you. And again, these aren't conspiracies, these are literally public records. There are certain websites where you can go on them and search for how much each politician has taken from a specific industry. And at the end of the day, that's why America First reform never happens. Universal healthcare never happens. Because it's not profitable for these rogue companies. And these companies don't care about you, they don't even care about America itself. They only care about their own profits. It's gotten so bad that nowadays you've even seen people taking things into their own hands. And obviously something like that is horrible in and of itself, but it's also the logical endpoint of a society that doesn't represent its people. Another example of corporate interests being against America First policies is in our infrastructure. You look at our biggest rival, China. We're supposed to compete with them. We're supposed to be the world's superpower, but at least on this issue of infrastructure, we're falling behind at a scary pace. China's had high-speed rail for at least 15-20 years. Magnetic train tracks and shit. Boats that get taken on elevators and go over mountains. Entire cities built on top of each other. Insane drone technology. And this is all at the same time that we're stuck with potholes in the roads that take years to fix, crazy delays when we want to take public transportation like buses and trains, and like the New York City subway, for example. New York is supposed to be probably considered the crown jewel of America. I used to live around there, and every time I would go on the subway, there'd be rats and people pissing on the trains. And the reason why we don't have amazing infrastructure in America, we don't have something as simple as high-speed rail, is for one, because our money is being diverted into other priorities, which I'll get into in a bit, but also because car companies, airlines, and even oil lobbyists, they fight tooth and nail to block any progress in public transportation, like trains and buses. Because if those were more popular, then the people who sell cars, planes, and gas would make less money. So they do the same thing. They donate money to politicians. In return, politicians will block a bill or some proposal saying that we should build a high-speed rail in our state. And that's the end of that. They don't want you taking a fast train from LA to San Francisco in 3 hours. They want you paying $400 for a plane ticket or $70 to fill up on gas. Again, corporate money controls our politicians. They're compromised. They're not representing the interest of the people. The other big issue in our government, and possibly even crazier, is just foreign influence. And I might get in trouble for saying this, but it's true. At least right now, there are two elephants in the room. One of them is Israel. Our government sends Israel billions of dollars in foreign aid every single year. I think the number is like 3.8 billion currently. But the point is that your tax dollars, money that could be going to affordable housing, education, fixing our streets, all that money is going towards funding another country. not only their military, but also their healthcare system. Israel has universal healthcare on our dime. We give money to a country that has universal healthcare while we don't. No amount of propaganda is going to change the fact that that's actually insane. And as you might know, that's because groups like AIPAC, I'm just going to put it this way, spend massive amounts of money interfering in American elections. I don't want to hear all that nonsense about Russia interfering in our elections in 2016 to help Trump win or all of that bullshit, you know. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but what we know 100% is that Israel has been interfering in every single one of our elections in recent years. They endorse candidates, fund campaigns, run attack ads against anyone who criticizes pro-Israel policy. In fact, Miriam Adelson and other wealthy pro-Israel special interests and even individuals apparently gave Trump over $230 million alone. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars on elections overall. And isn't it a coincidence that Trump nowadays is attacking Thomas Massie? If you don't know, Thomas Massie just so happens to be the only Republican politician in the entire country who doesn't take money from AIPAC and doesn't always support giving Israel more money, more weapons, and wanting to fight their wars. And speaking of that, do you really think it's a coincidence that we've gone to war with every single one of Israel's enemies in the Middle East? Do you think that's a coincidence? We invaded Afghanistan, we invaded Iraq, we bombed Syria, we bombed Yemen. The Iran situation is by no means over if you actually take a closer look at the strategic objectives of each country. Think about all the American lives and dollars spent just to serve foreign interests. We literally just spent hundreds of millions of dollars on the operation to bomb Iran. Apparently the nuclear facilities haven't even been destroyed, and now that only incentivizes them to actually try to build a nuke, and the cycle repeats itself. Israel, and eventually us, is gonna have to go in again. If you really think the Iran thing is over, then why is there a proposed bill right now called the Bunker Buster Bill to send our most advanced planes and weaponry to Israel for free whenever they want it? Not even to speak of that they're a country that's currently doing certain very bad things to a certain population in the Middle East. If that's not insane enough, why are there now laws trying to criminalize criticism of Israel, a foreign country? Let that sink in. You can trash the US government all you want as an American citizen. You can even make a living off of it, as many political commentators do. It's a whole industry. But now there's a certain overseas foreign government that if you happen to criticize them, you're suddenly called anti-Semitic and you might have your citizenship revoked. That's not free speech, that's not democracy, that's not sovereignty. Sometimes it feels like we're not even a sovereign nation anymore, with our politicians beholden to multinational corporations and foreign governments. And speaking of foreign governments, I'm not saying this just to single out Israel as well. Another perfect example is Ukraine. Since their war with Russia began, the US has sent over $175 billion in aid to Ukraine. Military, economic, humanitarian, whatever flowery rhetoric you want to package it in. And it's not that we support Russia, that we don't care about Ukrainian civilians, but most Americans are struggling to afford groceries. There's literally people financing groceries in payments of 4. There are homeless veterans in the country. There are people going bankrupt because they can't afford medical bills. But somehow there's always just unlimited money for foreign conflicts, none for domestic relief. And in fact, at least based on what I've seen on the news, it seems like they're actually going to cut a lot of social safety programs for ordinary people. So the point I want to make is that it doesn't matter if you're left or right, Democrat or Republican. Don't ever let these politicians and talking heads in the media gaslight you into thinking that as an American, you can't not want to support Ukraine or Israel, because then you would be supporting Russia and supporting Iran, and those are so-called enemies. No, they're not the enemy of the people, because you know who's the true enemy of the people? Any politician who puts the interest of any foreign country over the well-being of American citizens is a traitor, straight up. I sometimes feel like this shit is so obvious. How do so few people see these things? How is the political system the way it is allowed to stand? It's because this is the playbook. Keep people fighting about the issues that divide us. Make sure these issues are highly emotional, like gender, race, abortion. And then meanwhile, quietly sell this country piece by piece to the highest bidder, whether it be a multinational corporation or a foreign government. Every time we argue with each other or leave nasty comments online, every time we cancel someone over a tweet from 2012, every time we fall for clickbait outrage, they run out the back door with the money from deals that keep us poor, hopeless, and wondering what's the point of it all. The one thing that we can all agree on is that this system as it stands is broken, and that's exactly why they don't want us to unite. If you've ever thought, what's the point in voting, like I have, if you ever felt that no one in power actually cares about you, if you've ever seen a politician and thought they don't even live in the same world as I do, you're not lazy, you're not apathetic, they don't necessarily deserve your vote, you're just awake. Because when the game is rigged, checking out is a form of sanity. So I don't blame anyone for completely not caring about politics and what's going on in the world. We can only make the best of our own lives. But at the same time, that's also exactly what they want you to believe, that you don't have power. Because if enough of us are checked out of the system, then nothing ever changes. Anyways, I'm not telling anyone who to vote for. I'm sure the comments are going to be totally civil. Definitely not going to be people making assumptions about my political beliefs and all that. All I'm saying is to just pay attention and think about these things on a slightly deeper level. That's all it takes to start realizing some of these harsh truths. Because the first step of even possibly fixing any of this is seeing it clearly. See who profits from your suffering. See who has a reason to sell you false hope. Think about how both sides of any conflict play the game behind the scenes and the end goal or the strategic objectives of each party involved. And then you can do your own research. Start asking better questions. Why is healthcare so expensive? Why can't we afford homes? Why do we have money for bombs and not schools? Why are we divided by the things we can talk through, while the real issues stay untouched, and in fact you're not even allowed to touch them in many cases? The one thing I'll end this off on is that Gen Z is smarter than a lot of people think. We're skeptical, we're observant, we've seen how the patterns of history repeat itself, and we're tired, but we haven't entirely given up. And if there's one thing the system fears, it's a generation that's no longer playing by the rules. I think we should stop fighting each other when it comes to Democrat or Republican, liberal or conservative, and we should start focusing on the obvious things that we can all agree on, like no corruption, no wars, putting America first, because this country was built by us, not by corporations, not by foreign governments, not by the career politicians who represent them. And the sooner we act like it, the sooner we can take it back. Anyways, thanks for watching as always. Part of me doesn't even want to talk about politics, but it's just all over the news nowadays. It's something that's hard to avoid and something that I'm starting to have stronger opinions on as I learn more about just how absurd this whole system is. Other than that though, as always, I want to shout out the people who support me on Patreon and channel memberships. You guys really are the ones who make this channel possible, especially because a lot of my videos have been getting demonetized recently, and because, as you see, I'm not trying to sell you some course. I don't have an advertisement in the middle of this video. I'm not trying to do some infomercial for a digital product, trying to sell you some stupid shit, because I want to keep this channel as genuine as possible. And the only way I can keep doing this in the long term is with the support of you guys. So again, thank you so much for everyone who already does help with that. And if you're not on Patreon or channel memberships, I would definitely consider joining. On Patreon, we have a really cool community chat, and I post behind the scenes updates and very interesting stuff in general. With channel memberships, you can watch all my previous full-length live streams and a lot of members-only videos that are a bit more personal and in-depth. And obviously, if you're a member of either, you can message me one-on-one through any platform. So I'd really appreciate if you consider joining either one of those. And of course, also check out the second channel. I post travel and hiking vlogs on there, and it's some really cool stuff. We're getting really close to 1,000 subscribers on there, so let's see how soon we can get that. Check it out, subscribe. That's about all I have for now. I hope this video made sense to most of you out there.